Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Carl, and welcome to week 12 of coronavirus sheltering in place live poetry on Sundays. Today I'm going to read from my book, Trace a Moment's Closure for Clues, which was published in 1996 by Logo Douglas Press. I think to tell the story of how this book came to be published on Logo Douglas Press, I need to first talk about Spencer Selby, and then in order to talk about Spencer Selby, I need to talk about Small Press Traffic bookstore. So when I moved to San Francisco in the spring of 1990, I lived about 2 blocks from this bookstore called Small Press Traffic Bookstore, which was in a little front of an apartment. It was in like a room, like a room or two of an apartment building, a couple of blocks from where I lived. And as the name implies, they published a lot, or they sold a lot of books from small presses all over the world. Mostly poetry, but not all. And they also had poetry readings. And so by early 1992, I was started going to lots of poetry readings there, and I met all these really interesting people. There was a whole poetry scene around this bookstore. And so I met all these great poets and small press journal publishers and editors, and one of these people was a San Francisco poet and critic and publisher named Spencer Selby. And Spencer is maybe 15 or 20 years older than I was, and he was from Iowa originally, but he was living in San Francisco, and he was publishing books under the name Sync Press. And so he lived near Golden Gate Park, and I used to go every so often. I would go hang out with him, and I would never go to his house because he would spend the day. His wife worked, and he would go and spend the day in this cafe that was across the street from his house, and he would write all day in this cafe. And so I'd go see him in the cafe, and we would talk, and then when his wife got home, we would go home and hang out at his house. But Spencer was really friendly. He was really wanted to help everybody, and he would make time. He'd always make time to talk to you, and he was very direct in his critiques of everything, and he was very honest and affable. He was very good humored, and he was a great guy. And one of his things that he did to serve the community, one of many things, was he compiled this list of small press journals that published experimental poetry, and he was updating this thing all the time, and consequently people from all over the world were sending him their small press magazines and poetry journals and stuff. So I'd go over to his house, and he would always have he had bought he was also an artist, and he was using he had bought a copy machine, which back in those days weren't bundled with printers and fax machines, so you had to buy your own copy machine. And so he wanted to get he wouldn't take his work to the copy store because they could never get the blacks the way he wanted them. So he had to get the blacks just the way he wanted them. So he bought his own copy machine so he could do that. So he would run off a copy of his latest list for me, and he would give it to me. So I found out about all these crazy small literary journals, and he would also have copies of the magazines. So he would show me the magazines, hey, I think some of your poems might fit in this one, and you would give me the actual magazine to look at, and so I could see oh yeah, maybe this would be. So that was how I found out about Logo Douglas Press, was from Spencer's list. And they were this small press run by these 2 guys out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So I sent them some work, in 1995, I believe, and they were doing this crazy issue that was based on anonymous collaboration, where if all the poets that sent them work, they would send it off to a different poet and have that poet manipulate the work somehow as a sort of anonymous collaboration. And I was game for that, so they were like, "Hey, your work is really interesting, and thanks for playing along, and we would be interested in publishing a book of yours." So I put together this manuscript, and basically the way them publishing it worked out was they let me take care of all of the publishing, and they just sent me a check for like $150 for the copy machine fees. So I took it down to this copy place. I didn't want to impose on Spencer, so but I took it down to this cheap copy place and ran off 100 copies or something, and Logo Douglas sent me a check for $150 to cover it. So I got my friend Darlene to do the cover. I asked her to design the cover for me, and she was very gracious and skillful and created this nice cover. So it's got fish and flowers and got the name and my name in a little circle around. So it's really cool design. So anyway, so there's some more details that I'll get to at the end, but this is basically a grab bag of different styles. It's got some of those film poems, and it's got some erasures and some imaginary translations, and so I'll talk about that at the end. So trace a moment's closure for clues. First poem is called The Time of Yellow Grass. Two figures from the other world intrude simultaneously, the shadow of the fool returning and that of the corpse. Yellow grass at the cave's mouth turning grave into a whisper. Eagle shade, a broom of rushes. Corpse brought in, the fool chased out. Even the animals wait. Alien, infidel, just as the accursed birds. Lie down with his quiet shattered return. The animals inhabit this world as another. The millstone turned with care. This tribe itself an oblique alterity in the mountains. The woman's lamentation is bringing each world home. Fool, gluing together broken earthen pots. The sun nets an Orpheus. A god made green. We aver, I say, the soul of a man dares fall through the small lyre. The mind beings twice split, and the cruising wire's heart stood away, a kind of fur temple, appalled. Singing, like we do at last, is not begging, not put off like the endless knock of rites. Singing is design. For a god, that's lights. But what about our sins? And what winds him up to answer being with the earth and sterno? This is night, youngling. That's what you love. When each death's stymied on the mound you've overstuffed. Learn or even guess what's your sing-along. That's the very end. In the height of war, sing. It's a manly hawk. A hawk, arms nixed. A when for a god. A wind. I have mead. I have mead. The afternoon is Greece, and the tristest on the ceiling upbraids me with his dead voice. I have my heart set on wanting a princess forgotten in the fondles of a palatial dessert. I have mead, and my measly tan, tired and Pekingese, reflects on what a tardy sin it is to meditate on Ella. In my sick brain there's no half-dream of cable swaying, just as in the sky there's no cable connecting the stars. sin embargo in my misty eyes. A question existed, and hey, a greeting in my vocals that my vocals don't greet. No hey, here's the terror that ogles my twisted cheese, abandoned amid the infinite earth. Say merry, the universe's day is a calm agony without a festive soul or a green crepuscule. Saturn's agonizer covets my penis. The earth is a black fruit murdered by the sky. I pour the vast edicts from vases, vans, cigars, the nubile day. The tardy like pears did bark that they've stolen stars and roots off of rutabagas, and the world's murder falls soberly on my life. Here I am with my Poorish corpus. Here I am with my Poorish corpus, fronting crepuscules which paint golden reds on the ceiling of afternoon. Meanwhile, the dark trees within the clouds liberate them and sally out to dance with the roads. I don't know why I'm here, or when the vines came, or why the soul's red light accuses everyone. It beats me with feeling in front of my sad corpus, the immensity of its ceiling of light weighted with gold, the enormous reddening of this soul that doesn't even exist yet, just the bloated cadaver of the territory it's killed, and right in front of the astral luminaries that collapse the sky, the immensity of me aghast under the huge afternoon. Sleeping ferociously through the whole world. This has a dedication for Steve Benson and Jackson McLowe. Warped picture of a story, the ink truthful as speed. A silent science quickly fancies pretty sides of words. Fully acceptable expert, friendly approaches, apparitions to addiction. A comforting trance of unstable decline, moves shadows, emitting abrupt thinking. Symptoms ascertain their client states. Years of slow war. Lacking politic engagement, crosses popular time, framed labor evaporates. An alarm speaks deliberately. The rest, guilty courts, have secrecy, avoiding venturesome sectors of fraud. A scary fit pauses time. Intimacy breathes upward, harmonian context a matter of side. A complication studious but shapely, lyric gadget, apparent matron apologized to the possible angels. Shared fragments of melodic fluster, stirred story once born from features of struggles. I insert us in concert, return upended in the juice of diamonds. Of unemployment. The dry device shown below nothing and purposeful, so required in your grocer's toolbox. Convenient apocalypse, show me, wait till I get my contact in. The enjambment I seek, ethereal, impossible in most meta-technological inscription appliances. It approaches not dawn and organizes the recuperation of day's heat. Time to get more chatty. A job is like a parakeet, a sphericite, an amoeba matrix of daily digest, each conundrum or continuum with its aftertaste of decoupage. A maybe excursion from the body. Look what these words are doing. Not a technology, but a logotechnics. Sound play towards centering. Forgotten orality, the splay more mind's eye seen. Short swirls of assonance, an arpeggiating stairway to satori. Sentences slats in a panorama. A lot of appended axia. Form can be open, action in a leap which is resting also. Little resistance what one needs to bring against a charge of pardon for standing untold to vassalage. Municipality of fearing. Bare contiguous notions like these, proper or prior. Straw supports blown over by the blustery front. The ice administrator piddles away his winter inventory. So shall we vagabond homeless. Check, what do the words do now? Not a howl, but a cooing to the moon. Born with a fresh extraneous nature to express. Ablative harbor necessitates a dust jacket. Narrative never ends, it just fills up more points in space. Unthinging, decloaked, reconfigured to fire a phased pulse. It awaits your order, gives up the gist. We drown in excess of things themselves. Decline literate. The image is subjecting everything to occurrence. Leslie Scalapino. Hums. The palazzo. The surf riding on a new waxed moon. Attraction makes me want to spell your face in here. Sir, I found a machine like you. The surfeit of worlds could change everything. To need a freedom nominated as well as effective. How would the word sound out in 50 years? Spelled by letters of wrought iron and pigeon feathers. If no woman were to listen and re-speak it. Understanding, we are the always already arriving, standing under. Quintet for Drew Gardner. A flawed riot of woodwinds and strung or struck across this room's throughway. This is more relational. Mass the swing of the lungs on the bloodstream and only nexus of cyclic and chant. Timed and impossible. Space, ground as verbs. Until there's a poetics of logic, what grammars, what's dissonant. Somewhere raindrops must sound. Only open embrace a little bit to transplant these flurries. Awake during the fermata. Landing presupposed with melody compositive. The words only lent new weight. This one needs a little explanation. This was one of the anonymous collaborations from that issue of Logo Deadless. And so what I decided to do with this poem that they sent me by this other writer, who I think was Celestine Frost, I think at least one of the poems that I did for that issue was by Celestine Frost, and I think it was this one. It's been a long time, so I'm not 100% sure. And so what I did was I decided to leave Celestine's text intact and just build out the lines around it with my text. So that's kind of hard to. It's got that visual component, because what I did on the page was I put my text in italics, and I left Celestine's text in plain text. But I can't really. So the way I'm going to delineate that when I read this is I'm going to raise my hand when I'm doing my italicized text, and I'll put it down when I'm reading the original text from Celestine. So I'm not sure whether that will convey. I don't think it can really convey the full thing that's happening here, but at least it will. I'll be able to read the whole thing, and you can hear at least the sort of finished product. So this is poem founded upon contemplation of tenderness. The world's air cradles on many tongues, all one language, offering up its avowals. Uno bad, a tendresse, not to speak of mute poppies. Carefully observe omens, the rainbow filling the sky to its peak with fractioned colors, is boasting to the heavens of sky of our unfolding into the finity of world. What we have taught was laughter, avuncular coalition, purports its salvaging operatives into our stoic time frame, yet what we have shared through wave after wave of the moment passing is grief and widowhood. What others have written this line? Music is the utter meditation on time. Music is utter meditation on time. What other strange echoes and loops are spoken as uncannily as by melodies? Ours to accompany, incorporated with ears tipped toward the voice of destiny, imprecise as a steam cloud. This one is called Resurfacing the Screen. 1. Strain, restrain, hand opens reversing shadows, dark bone mass of images. 2. Kinematic apocalypse, a lush gothos of dread tunes, the sleeping machine, what your dreams dream, thinking they're you. 3. Mine the Hudson, rivering away under ice flows, fractal refraction of suns. 4. Hand as diaphanous sublime, altair, cosmopolitan, sinister. 5. Undoing of the hand, hyper-manipulation, making for. 6. The horrid mushroom noise beauty, earthsea obscured in ashen smoke. Sopyonje, song from the forks of loss. Don't die without telling me where you're going. Spirits may as easily be lost. Confused by pain of life, one might turn from its light and seek another way to the living. Crossing next to indistinguishable borders of film, dream and electronic intuition, exiled from reality and trying to escape to it. As the semiotician hangs his sign out to dry, left in the dust of auroras when they, at the last, chose even tears. Middle of the moment. Schnee and Jew's harp, snow spark out of breath smoke, mountain scale, suddenly human, the symbols wash off, protection. On the contrary, the scales stay huge, the human is matted to them, like trying to change jugglers midstream. They bury the closely cropped hair. Then began the goat bell symphony right on the promontory. And then it comes and pulls me into the sky, accounting in the sand. Melia, 1. A light like flakes on the road to dark, half black. 2. Light wood, new, the dates of years moved, a wreath of dark and laurel slips. 3. A cathedral I see, leaning on the bells, sending fields, sound leaves. 4. There is the branch off, a wind rising, everything. Hurrying the earth. The dazed casket the sun and moon the light of heaven, the stars inexorably slums and conquering. Some men needle more, another blocks ice, his bed, women, hanged in braids, climbed her opened box and swallowed. The time exhort I, the iron bird in ember. Mine rise, their pits flash like grating, men of rising the dead. Driving Minnesota during Hanoi. Wee lake just turning late turkeys, new grass. Long seconds are great. Terror, death, shoulders from helicopters, tortured telephone. Sorry, blew his head off. Instants crystal, particles the grass dissolve. Gaiety up in your cup, you down and starfig. Wee bomb. Therefore, the sufferings of string and the quivering helicopter animals shot the question. The title comes at the end of this one. Suggested, never certain, was a co-positing of ease, ligature, suture, and Turing machine dispensing with and all that. In all this cold, it never occurred to release the vent. Thought was it was already open and windowing her pain. Your third persona is tiring. You're trying dispersal on for height and weight. Now a rain will weather us. We'll meet with music. It'll shower out and incubate slow Lebensblend, ether nectar of breath which may catch, might hide in the throat hold of doubt. But the bet is hedged with terms. The hedge may hide machine gun nests, lines of dancing wasps coursing across the human supply, nearly interminate, nearly inexhaustible. Overcomes the WorldWar is the title. Wild analysis. Cats enjoying their small critter attacks, and it's been a mean while, often integrate the play and movement of their prey. In a trice, the monsters of reason manufacture narcolepsy. But surely the birds are battling for natural resources, Professor H. Intelligence levels are decided and channeled into their classifications during primary education, as it were across the board, by social workers who largely have neither the wisdom nor the time to try to maximize the individual's potential, even within their modest scheme. This all accords with the way a certain vitalism would have it. But what if some something declaimed a war to extinguish its own fire? It's just that there are serifs in our fantasy typefaces. This comic strip envisions lips sewn shut by dragonflies. Thus a resistance is mimicked and preserved. The samizdat recurs to critique career nihilism. Then we call it a nymph, highly colored in steel blue, purple, green, or copper. There it waits to jump on a careless insect or even a small fish. We're making waves in the sea of breathy air. Meanwhile, Gray Malkin makes a meal of nature's little helicopter. That's right, you. Compression number 2 for Thelonious Monk. A tick of a Roman clock, unsingular as the real life to us. The empaneled manifest weakens, spreads out into a well-armed militia. This last line can't be read. Hannibal's cabbage, a broken head carriage. Weighed to the ground, an earthen swing plays shingles, Lane back, apodosis. Itinerant groceries upside midnight, I swipe the wise invention from ample aisles of grub. Time crab plays us as cancered fiddle, upping drumbeats of heat to heart, the snow of Maya kindled. Canter stuffly the shadow, piano, then shamble into brass splash, the staggered prise open the gate. Ambusher, you've blown it. Each negation modifies activity, leaves nature untouched. What will walk about as sound? Can you play this street still? Affect one mode per time? Wet with whispery, the rehabilitation of the familiar, comes sunder winter's cover to a terrifying sentence of renewal. One touch may finish, where the skull is buoyant. Acute fossilization in syntax, the tag-along awaiting an opening in the chronic. Impersonal it, riffing off the labials, rips intuitive lapels into Raphael lip. This last line can't be read. Ambusher, you've blown it. So long, Eric. The sextet's real duet became a 5-piece elegy, only needing to be named at this later stage. Rubbery bass band bending timbral meditation into induced voice space. I have a wrist from there. Evolving borders now protrude like the own eyes of expected humus. The dim roses that throng this vortex come to fact. Why are you at my I am when that is the I am? Our long march to the sacrifice of veils, one expensive sickness. A big goat dangles gray shells within the eyes of my son, parts becoming dream with years, a cupola, and 2 roses. Never were you like my cat, ear who cannot accept hearing, unless my stare enter at the house and see it. I make one else's bracelets of roses I never stared or sent. Someone always told my internal hearing child where I visit her from dreams. My visits grew and I took long starts for size. And then I have you for my like. Scalloped kisses explain a held layer of sun until the animal dreams spiral the attic with beehives. Noe Valley. The architecture tumbles by slow stair steps down into the street. A constellation of air sinks from habitable hillsides. I depend on a distinct call from upstream. It's our racetrack incarnation, but we shudder to retire. Noise pollution may be the answer to all our problems. It may have to do with our becoming uptight. A drawing in or with from feeling. Yet the murderer engaged in a long soliloquy. There are times when the gesture is serious, said another woman. The court reporters sounded like gently raining fall. There are at least 3 more pairs of movement I've neglected, where what goes through the mind and what the mind goes through are balanced. This smile is an attack on sadness. Abandoning traditional narrative, it simply recurs amid the enemy in the manner of sparrows plotted out in freestanding sky. The Rare Narrative, San Francisco, autumn 1995. I saw this. Pared down to the field of my eyes of vision, I saw this. Inflected with the bright, thick shades of memorized friends, I saw this. Never only suggested, pumped up with the life of blood, I saw this. leaped through out of a leaky creation, drips mist, then eloped down from the staggering sky like a brace of angels. This I say I saw, what could not have been seen by even anyone. The lights, not just described, but insistent, are lancing open elusive air, unloosed above us all, brandished like our only hope. This I saw, and am that I no more. Come home to your senses. Twin-engine events shun a capacity for catastrophe, stringing to tension a line of contended whatever. In favor of a break, the age impends again. The mind, sometimes a heard murmur in back, grounded a room away, a voice familiar through an era of this but a lacuna a few words only breach. Now wait, has it been talking to me? Appendix B. Good guts close in a light breeze. Your eyes only make notes. Many smells can identify visceral tears, the same, head down to any spare sheet available. Make the first distracting or extraneous opposite a nostalgic story starter. Go rough, catch-all medicine. Itemize, recall, each thing is story, single or dialogue, and extra exercise in children's poetry. Words likely beginning to read, find sets of words containing words with each other. By, cry, I, lie. Children's poetry, only words found, simple poem at least, lines in mind. And that is the text of that. Thank you. So the time of yellow grass, resurfacing the screen, Sopyonje, don't die without telling me where you're going, and middle of the moment were all film poems. So those were written while I was watching the films of those names. Resurfacing the Screen was actually a series of short films by the artist Chris Burden that I saw at the San Francisco Art Institute, I believe. So that's why that poem is in 6 little sections, is because there was one for each little section of the film score. And then Sopyonje, since that's a Korean word, I should explain that it was a Korean film that I saw in 1995, and it was a film about a family that made its living as a traveling group of pansori singers. Pansori is a Korean musical style that sort of roughly analogous to the blues. It's kind of like it has a sadness, a quality of taking sadness and turning it to music to try and share that sadness with people and help people feel better. So and that poem, you may have noticed, only has one line: songs from the forks of loss. So that was kind of all I felt I could say about that one, other than the description of the poem itself. So the poems, The Sun Nets and Orpheus, I Have Mead, and Here I Am with My Poorish Corpus. Those are all imaginary translations. The first one is from Rilke, and the other 2 are Pablo Neruda poems. I already talked about poem founded upon contemplation of tenderness. Melia and Hurrying the Earth and Driving Minnesota during Hanoi are all erasures of poems by Robert Bly, which came out of, I think this might be Bly's first book of poems, The Light Around the Body, which I found for free in a box of books on the street in San Francisco. So their erasures, Melia is the erasure of the poem Melancholia. Hurrying the Earth is an erasure of the poem Hurrying Away from the Earth. And Driving Minnesota During Hanoi is erasure of an anti-Vietnam War poem that he wrote called Driving Through Minnesota During the Hanoi Bombings. And then Wild Analysis and Appendix B both incorporate text from that 1906 textbook that I talked about in the last reading that also found its way into a mutant pantoum. So Wild Analysis takes some lines and just pulls them into my format of the poem, and Appendix B is an erasure of text from that book. So, anybody have any questions? Let's check the. I don't see any questions here. Some thumbs up, some claps, some smileys, and some highs. Hello, everybody. So yeah, I guess we'll wrap it up for this week. Thanks everybody for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. And everybody take care. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Let's help each other out, and we'll try to make it through till next week, one day at a time. Bye, everybody. Love you.